customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DeJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you are a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution podcast with John DeJulius. This week, John sits down with Admiral Thomas Lynch. Listen in as Admiral Lynch shares lessons from a successful football career, 32 years in the Navy, and decades of working in the private sector as a senior-level executive for multiple large corporations. In this episode, you'll learn what he has learned from football, the U.S. Navy, and corporate America, what the motto Ship.Shipmate.Self means, and how it applies to every business, and the characteristics he can spot in people that he believes have a higher probability for long-term success in anything. Now here's your host, John DeJulius.
Welcome, revolutionaries, to another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. I am John DeJulius, Chief Revolution Officer of the DeJulius Group. And today I'm so excited to share with you Admiral Thomas Lynch, formerly of the U.S. Navy, and he is one of my top 5 people I've ever met. And I only say that about 5 people. And I've known him for nearly a decade, and I can't wait to share with all of you what has made Admiral Lynch such a role model to me, professionally and personally. Welcome, Admiral Lynch.
Well, thank you very much, John. And it's an honor and a privilege for me to be with you on this podcast. And I look forward to it. You talk about me, but you've enlightened my life, that's for sure. Your energy, your enthusiasm, and your concern for your fellow man is something I treasure and I appreciate very much.
Thank you, Admiral. That means a lot to me. The first time I met you is when I came to NewDay USA, who you are the executive chairman of. And I was speaking to, a group of employees, and you were sitting in the front row. And as I'm talking, you were scribbling notes feverishly. I'm like, oh my God, like he's taking notes. And so I kind of casually walked by you, peeked over your shoulder, and I see it's like pick up 2% milk on the way home. And it was just your to-do list. But hey, I was still happy.
I'm sure you're joking because I always listen very attentively to all that you have to say because you have good wisdom for us all.
Well, thank you. And I'm so excited. So there's so much to talk about. You had a 32-year decorated career for the U.S. Navy. Before that, you were the captain of the Navy team, which you had a little-known quarterback. I believe you were a center, Roger Staubach. Heisman-winning quarterback Roger Staubach. You were his center, and then since your naval career ended, you've worked in corporate America, and I really love to delve into those 3 aspects because you've seen so much. You've seen great leadership, and I believe and you correct me if I'm wrong. It applies across sports, the military, and corporate America. Is that safe to say?
I would say so, absolutely. And I would say that, it kind of starts right from the beginning. As a young kid growing up in Lima, Ohio, one of 5 children, neither of my parents had gone to college. No one in my family had been in uniform. But it was ingrained in us that everything that you do, you work as hard as you can, you pray as hard as you can, and then leave the rest up to God. And that's sort of been a philosophy. And then I wound up quite surprisingly at the Naval Academy itself.
What made you want to go to the Naval Academy? I mean, it's tough enough being first generation college student, but then you picked the one of the hardest institutions in the world.
Well, they picked me actually. As it turned out, big kid, good student, no money in the cookie jar, so I had to get a scholarship. And fortunately for me, my senior year, I received some football notoriety up in Western Ohio. And Notre Dame came calling, and I spent a weekend on the campus. And then they said, we're going to give you an academic scholarship. Wow, I'm going to Notre Dame. I'm a Catholic kid, parochial school. I mean, it's a perfect fit. Shortly thereafter, the Big Ten rolled in and had it down to Northwestern or Purdue. They said that academic scholarship at Notre Dame is a few $100s. We're talking about full room, board, and tuition for 4 years.
Wow.
Wow. I'm now a Big Ten guy. But what had happened a couple of years before that, when I was a sophomore in high school, the Life magazine came to our home. And then it was on the cover was Montgomery, Bernard Montgomery, the British general in World War II. And inside was an article about Pete Dawkins, All-American football player, Rhodes Scholar, captain of the Corps of Cadets, Heisman Trophy winner. I remember telling my mother, and you're talking about 65 years ago, Mom, I now know what I want to do. I want to go to West Point. And because there's a little article about West Point and life at West Point. And her response was, Tommy, we don't know anybody. You have to have political connections to go to a school like that. Okay, fine. It's back to Notre Dame or wherever. And so a couple of years later, I'm being recruited, and we put on a science fair. And Jack Jennings, class of 47, Naval Academy, engineer, Lima, Ohio, asked me after the fair if I had ever considered going to the Naval Academy. Mr. Jennings, you don't understand. You got to know people. And he said, look, you write a letter to Congressman William McCullough, send your board scores to the Naval Academy, and I'll take care of the rest. And a couple of weeks later, the Naval Academy came calling, and my dad always said use football as a means to an end, but not the end in itself. So I had an opportunity to go to a prestigious school, get a great education, have security when you graduate, 4-year service obligation we had at the time, and have an opportunity to play Division I football. So, but I didn't have to if I didn't want to. So I wound up at the Naval Academy in the summer of 1960, scared to death, not knowing the difference between the Army and the Navy, and soon learned the difference very quickly. Because the first thing you learn at the Naval Academy is beat Army, and we did that for 5 years in a row that I was there, and 4 years as a midshipman. And it was our fifth year in a row that we beat them in my senior year. So, yeah, it was a great experience, and the good Lord was looking out for me. I mean, I could have been wound up at West Point. I say that to my Army friends, but no, it was a wonderful experience, and I feel very blessed. I've been blessed throughout my life, actually.
It's funny, kids, even today, we they don't know, or we at that age don't know what we're getting ourselves into, right? You read an article saying, oh, that's what I want to do, which is, not great research. I'm making a life decision like that. At any time did you said, oh my God, I'm not in Kansas anymore, or Lima? This was bigger than I ever thought.
Absolutely. Every day I was at the Naval Academy, I felt that way. I mean,
yeah.
I am a small bumpkin from Lima, Ohio, and everybody here is an All-American, an academic, this and that. And wow, it was just an amazing experience. But I quickly, I think anybody that's ever gone to a service academy, there's an innate sense that I want to serve my country. I want to be in a position to do something for my country in the future. And this is a great opportunity, and you serve your country, and you learn very quickly, non sibi sed patria, not self, but country. And that's something I've carried with me throughout my life. I tell young people today, I tell others that I meet, the aspiring leaders here at NewDay, that every great leader I have known now has always put themselves last. And I've seen this in my career in the Navy. As a matter of fact, when I had my first command, I had command of a ship for 36 months. We were away from our families in home port. 30 of those 36 months, it was post-Vietnam malaise, and in the 70s, and a very difficult time for our military. The commitments are still there. It's a big ocean out there, and 70% of the earth is covered by water, and we have a forward deployed strategy and a military strategy. So I spent a lot of time away. And when you have command, I mean, everything that happens aboard that ship, every preparation, every one of those 300 sailors, I mean, it's all on you. And after a while, I said, well, why is it just me? Why is it the seaman feeling that way? Why isn't the lieutenant feeling that way? Why doesn't the chief feel that way? Why is every petty officer in the ship? So I developed something that I call Ship.Shipmate.Self. To be a successful sailor at sea, you've got to think every thought, word, and deed. What effects is a ship that is thought, word, or deed going to have on my ship, my shipmates, and then I worry about myself. And that's what I have to do as commanding officer. And I had everybody, I won't say I had 100%, but I'll say this, by the time I left that ship 3 years later, we were probably 95% of my sailors felt that way and believed that way. And the result was obvious. I mean, we became the most improved ship in the fleet of 350 ships. We made every commitment. And most dearing to me was the fact that we were the highest retaining ship. In other words, the sailors out there, and he wants to ship over for another 4 or 6 year term in the Navy because of the mission, the people he's with, and had that Ship.Shipmate.Self philosophy, which you have to do as a parent, you have to do as a coach, and you have to do as a supervisor. So all of us, and try it someday, putting yourself last in every thought, word, and deed. And I tell young people here at NewDay, when you get out of that car in the morning, I want you to think, NewDay, what can I do for NewDay? What can I do for those veterans who are helping? What can I do for my colleagues? And then worry about yourself. Oh, it's raining, better get an umbrella. But if you think that way, and we are, and we're going to have a very successful company, and that's what we have here. And I'm 81 years of age. For me, at this point in my life, to give back to the veteran community, as we do here at NewDay, is a wonderful, wonderful thing for me. And I thank the good Lord every day for the opportunity he's given me.
Yeah. And I mean, you just said it all so well. And I wrote about it in my last book, The Relationship Economy. I wrote about you. I wrote about your motto, Shipmate Self, and how that applies. And I absolutely love that. And I've heard it, working with NewDay the past decade. And for my audience, my listeners that may not be familiar, NewDay USA is a mortgage company that only serves veterans, that you are the executive chairman on. And, listen, I love that Shipmate.Self because, so many of NewDay employees are recent college graduates, yet they're, the vast majority of their customer are veterans who served in Vietnam. So there's a disconnect there initially, and we have to, teach them what's going on in a veteran's life, and their whole mindset, so they have more compassion and empathy and want to come to the rescue. So that's serving them who served us. I love that, and I've learned so much from that.
Need help getting brilliant at the basics? Contact Claudia at thedejuliusgroup.com and find out how the team of consultants at the DeJulius Group can help you get there.
We breezed over your athletic career. You were teammates and very close friends, I believe still to this day, with Heisman Trophy winner and Super Bowl champ and Hall of Fame quarterback Roger Staubach. And I believe he credits you with all the sacks he had in college. Is that right?
Yeah, the Lynch with the lookout block. Hey, Roger, watch this. We come and get you. Now, in fact, I credit Roger with making me a better football player because we held our blocks longer. We looked for other blocks, and Roger would take off. Roger the Dodger, and so we had to make sure
he was one of the first running quarterbacks ever.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Him and then Fran Tarkington. I think they were around the same time, but I believe you didn't see that. You only saw pocket passers. Now you don't see pocket passers.
Right. And Roger is almost like Wayne Gretzky in hockey, who knew where the puck was at all times without having it himself. Roger had that sixth sense that really made him a very special football player. But he also had the personality and the wit and the just the genuine person that he is to make him a truly, truly special person. And he's probably the finest human being I've ever known.
Wow.
Everything he's done in his life, he's done with excellence. And a midshipman at the Naval Academy, graduated, spent 4 years on active duty, 13 months in Vietnam, and then chose to go into football after some hesitation, but wound up going with the Dallas Cowboys, becomes the quarterback for America's team. As you mentioned, All-Pro, MVP, Hall of Fame. In the meantime, he married his high school sweetheart right out of the Naval Academy, Mary Ann Hooper. And they've been married since June of 1965. And they have 5 children, 15 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren. And so fortunate for them that they're all within 5 miles of their home there in Dallas. when he finally hung it up in football, because he was one of the first to recognize CTE, the concussion protocols that are so prevalent today. But he had a doctor in New York said, Roger, if you continue getting these concussions, because he was a scrambling quarterback and because he was such a competitor on the field, he took an awful lot of hits. Roger, if you continue, these concussions are cumulative. You'll be a vegetable in your old age. And so he stepped down from football at his prime, and professional players weren't making then what they are today. So you had to work in the off season. And he started a commercial real estate company from scratch, grew it to 1,200 people, 65 offices throughout America, and sold it to Jones Lang LaSalle. Actually, they merged with Jones Lang LaSalle about 6-7 years ago. I think Roger sold it for $612 million and $100 million in stock, which has since quadrupled. And everybody in that company that worked with Roger, he was very generous with everyone. And so it's a blessing. I mean, and he could be here on this call with us today and just joking and laughing and just be one of the guys. But we loved him to death. When he got the Heisman Trophy, it made us also very happy on the team.
It had to be you won the Heisman. I'm sure it had to feel like, I mean, because
exactly.
No single player can win it. No single leader can. And so I'm curious, what made Roger, if it's one or two words, what made Roger a great leader? They say the quarterback's the CEO of the football team, right? That you'd want to play harder and not, help him be successful of the team, that we can learn as a leader in business of young employees.
Well, you set the example, first of all, and on the field as a quarterback, like I say, I mean, he's a scrambling quarterback because he wanted to win. He had this desire to win, this competitive spirit that he's going to be number one and whatever it takes for the team. And if he's going to, if it means him running and two tackles coming in and the linebackers coming in, going to knock him cold, if it's going to help get across the goal line, he's going to do that. And he did it with such wit and charm and humbleness. He was a very humble guy. If in uniform as midshipman, he's just another midshipman. In fact, we all felt that we were midshipmen whose sport happened to be football at the Naval Academy. There's 35 varsity intercollegiate sports here. So everybody's an athlete practically. And we were just one other team, and we did our thing the best we could. We did it for our teammates. We did it for the brigade of midshipmen. We did it for our own intense desire to succeed. And just a lot of great guys that came together. We were all of good athletic ability. And back in those days, we played the top teams in the country. In fact, I remember our junior year, we played USC, and USC was like Alabama is today. Played USC in the Coliseum, and it was like the Christians going to the Lions Den, and we should have won. We lost 13-6 or 13-7, but we should have won that game. And and that kind of said, wow, we're pretty doggone good. And so the next week we beat Army 43-12, but who's remembering? But
right. Well, I love it. So all right, then now post naval career, 32 years, you've been in corporate America and have been CEO, chairman of so many different companies and foundations, and currently as the executive chairman of NewDay. So having all that from what do you look for in someone, I think maybe leader. All right. What do I need to look for or train in a leader? And then my second question after you answer that is, what characteristics, if you were to meet, my sons, and you were able to say, or you meet 10 people, you're going to say those two people, they're going to go far, right? Regardless of what that is, right? Sports, personal life, business. But let's go first. What do leaders have to have or be trained to have literally and figuratively an army of employees that will, do whatever it takes for them to help reach their goal?
Well, I didn't know it at the time, but I would say that the early on, you work as hard as you can in everything you do. You give it your best shot. You have a responsibility when you take a job. Whether it's a job may be the head of the household. I mean, whatever it may be, you give it all that you have and all of your energy, and you learn as much as you can, and you try to do as best you can. You're curious. You find out, why are we doing it this way? You're curious, you're inquisitive, and you're as helpful to your fellow man as you can. You're not in it for yourself. And that's where we get into that Ship.Shipmate.Self. You put yourself last. You worry about what's happening in the organization, what's happening with my colleagues, what's going on in my own life. You have to have a purpose in life. And so you do all of that. And then you sit back and things happen in life. I mean, we're not, we're all human animals here on planet Earth for a short period of time. And it's everything's not rosy and cheerful and positive and saying how wonderful we are all the time. Things happen. And when things happen, how do you handle those things? Do you say, I'm a victim? Do you blame it on somebody else? You say, hey, this happened. This is what I need to do to correct it, whether it's a personal fault of my own or I see something that's going on that I need to correct. You do that, and then you have no regrets. I think that's the biggest thing, too. I tell the young people here today, well, I want to keep everyone we have. I would trust my life with every young person we have here. And getting back to New Day, when a veteran calls us, we treat that veteran with a dignity, deference, and respect. It's a 45-minute call, that first call. And our young people are trained to do that. They do that, and it's so satisfying. And so I'm going to keep every one of these young people with us until they take over my job as executive here someday. But, things, and particularly in this world in which we live, I mean, there's a lot of options out there. And we tell them, you grow, you develop, you mature, and you create your options in life and your opportunities in life. So when they come in and they say, Admiral, I loved it here. I was able to get a car. I was able to get a ring for my girlfriend. I've done this. I've done that. My family's so happy. But, I'm now going to go do this. And I really feel badly about that. I said, wait a minute. Don't feel badly. Have no regrets in life. I mean, it may be the best decision you've ever made. It may be the worst decision you've ever made. But you know what? Whatever it is, you worked, you prayed, you made that decision, whether it's your emotion or immaturity or your knowledge at the time, or your experience at the time, or your gut, but whatever it is, go for it and then have no regrets. I can say at this point in time in my life, at age 81, I look back on my life and say, could I have made more money? Could I have gone higher in the Navy? Could I have been a better son to my parents? Could I have been a better parent for my children? But you know what? No regrets whatsoever. I gave it the best I had at that time with the knowledge I had. And then, I've always, and never say never. I mean, I always used to say, I'm not sure when I'm going to, but first of all, I was going to get out of the Navy after 4 years and get right back to Ohio. That didn't happen. Then when I retired, I said, I'm not going north of Virginia because I don't like the cold weather. And I wound up in Philadelphia, one of the worst winters they had in 95, 96. They haven't had a winter like that since. Cold, sleet, ice. What I do? But I got into venture capital, public venture capital company, because I trusted the people that were there at the time. And then, hey, if it doesn't work out, I'll do something else, but I'm going to do this. And I jokingly said, I couldn't spell venture capital, but I just had to be there. In 95 until about 2001, we brought about 15 companies public. It was really a remarkable time in my life. Had the opportunity to run a public company down in Dallas. And so it was a blessing. And who would have known? But prepare yourself each and every day for what may happen in the future, because you never know what's going to change or what opportunities will avail themselves to you, or what disappointments you'll have in life. But if you keep putting yourself last, you'll find you'll be around people like that. Those are the people you want to associate with. And those are the people and it'll be your partner for life. That partner for life, whether it's you're going to, in the case of a male, you get the woman that's going to make your life different. But that spouse is so important to have one that thinks the way you do, and that really. People, I heard people say, marriage is a 50-50 deal. Baloney. If you go into marriage, it's 50-50, you're going to be disappointed. I think you go into marriage and say it's going to be a 75 or a 90-10 deal. And if I get 10% out of her or him, then I'm going to be very happy. And then if she or he feels the same way, then you're going to have a 50-50 marriage. You're going to have a very happy marriage, and your kids are going to be happy. And so I was blessed in that regard. I married my high school sweetheart right out of the Naval Academy. And age 22, I was so mature. I knew everything there was to know in life, and so intelligent and everything else. And I look back on it, what a kid I was and how a child I was at that time. But it turned out very well for me. And I had lost her in 2010, but I now have another lady in my life that I love very much. And so it all works out, and 10 grandkids, and couldn't be happier.
3 children, 10 grandchildren, who I know you're very proud of. I love what you just did. You took Ship.Shipmate.Self and applied it to, the family, right? And family, marriage, whatever that may be, self. And like you said, you put yourself third in all that you do, and it'll come back to you.
You're the head of the household. You got to think, what effect it's going to have on my spouse, my family, my children, individually, my children, and then you worry about yourself. And then they start thinking that way too. And then there's no surprises in life, and everybody's in it together, and you're all pulling together. And I said before, we're all here for a short period of time, and it's to have this victim complex that so many people have, or this greed and selfishness. To lead a selfless life is probably the best blessing anybody can have, I would think.
What is it? The best blessing?
To lead a selfless life.
Yes. Yeah. Totally agree. And you role model that in every area. That's why, I say you've had 4 careers, if you will, the sports, football, naval, corporate America, and then your most successful career, and it's saying something, is your personal life with your family, your wife and your kids and your grandchildren, which every time I see you, you show me pictures, and you are a proud grandparent. So I love that. All right, Admiral, I so appreciate this. This was a highlight for me. It always is when I see you. You bring so much positivity. You bring so much energy to a room, to a conversation. Any parting thoughts that you want to give to our listeners?
No, I guess, find somebody that you truly love and make sure they know that you love them. Whether it's a parent, a spouse, a child, a neighbor. And when you say, I've learned too that when you say to somebody, how are you doing today? No, I'm fine. No, how are you really doing? What do you really feel? And then be quiet and hear what they have to say. Because a lot of times, hey, we all are going through this journey in life, and it's not roses and peaches and cream for everybody. And if you can be there and be that listening ear and be that friend for, like I say, it may be a child, it may be your spouse, it may be a parent, it may be an uncle, it could be a cousin, it could be a neighbor, colleague at work. And you have to go in and think that way. I think a lot of positive things will come your way.
Well, thank you, Admiral Lynch. It was fantastic having you as a guest, and you shared so many golden nuggets. You're an ATM machine of just, wisdom that we can all use in every facet of our life. I want to thank you, Revolutionaries, for joining me for another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast, and we will see you next week.
We appreciate your reviews. Please be sure to share your comments and let us know what you're enjoying most on the podcast. And to hear more episodes, be sure to subscribe now on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening and being part of the Customer Service Revolution.